Our guest today is Trey McAlister. He's an executive director with BNI, and he's a networking expert. So thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Reese.
So let's just jump out of the way for those who haven't heard of BNI, and I can hardly imagine a small business person who wouldn't. What is it?
I appreciate that. Although there are a lot of people that aren't, because it's not the only organization out there, but it is. BNI stands for Business Networking International, and it's the world's largest referral organization. It's a one-person per professional organization, allows business people to focus and intentionally pass referrals to one another in a more effective way, and it's worldwide.
So we'll talk more about what BNI is at the end a little bit, but for now, let's just run into what, the way you think of networking is probably vastly different from the way most people think of networking.
It probably is now, because I've spent the last over 10 years concentrating and focusing on business networking and referrals and things like that. So yes, I think that what you're talking about is that a lot of people don't typically like quote unquote networking, because their view of that is going to a large event with a lot of people and attempting to see whether or not they're able to get anything from that.
And to give people as many of their business cards as possible.
Right, either that's what they run into, and that's what, because
one way or the other.
Yeah, because the funny thing is, when people go to those events, they're hoping to be able to grow their business, to meet people and things like that. And yet, if you ask all of those same people, are they there to be sold something? None of them are wanting to do that. So it's a blockade between those two mindsets. So I look at networking on kind of two levels. One is an opportunity to be able to meet other people, either in similar industries or just in a community, and an opportunity to take that to the next step, which is from that networking, develop deep, long-term relationships that can mutually benefit one another. And so really networking is a tool to help businesses grow their business. It's a marketing tool to help businesses grow their business. But as a tool, we need to use it to where both sides are benefiting from that process. So.
And having been through one of the courses that you teach, one of the things is there's a way to think about who's in your network that's kind of mind-blowing. I think most people don't think of it that way. So if you could talk about who's in, what networks are and who's in them.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons that it may be mind-blowing is that, and I take this a step back, because I've been in marketing for over 15 years in one capacity or another, and it has been my experience that most people don't like to market. In fact, I don't know who's listening to this, but most marketers don't even like to market. But most people got into business to do what they wanted to do, not to market. And they know that they inherently know that they can't do it by themselves. So the only way to not do that is to go find other people, which is where that whole networking comes into place. And yet, just like most things in life, if we're focused in a particular arena around a group of people that are more likely to be able to help us, then that makes it a more effective tool. And that's, I think, what you're describing, which is that there are certain, we are in a lot of different networks. We may have a family. Well, that's a network of people. We may have a sports or religious association that we're a part of. Those are networks. We may have a professional association. Well, that's a network. So we're completely surrounded by networks, and it's just a matter of, networks are groups of people that have a like mind or a like focus.
Yeah. Alumni, former coworkers.
Yep. Yeah, in fact, there's a whole variety of different networks that we can be a part of. And to be as effective as possible, we do want to be part of multiple networks within reason. In fact, Dr. Meisner, who's the founder of BNI and is a referral marketing expert and genius, talks about being part of 3 different networks. Because the other thing that we'll run into is people that network and go to all these different events all the time. And it's not effective, because it's lessening their impact, because they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off, or just not be able to give to all the groups and help the groups the way that they need to. Mm-hmm. So we do need to diversify ourselves within reason. And I think that that's one area that people really can work on is, where should I be spending my time? It's the one commodity that we have that is limited. So figure out how to be more effective. And my experience has been the most effective networkers are those that have a limited number of networks and use them effectively, because it's, once again, going back to that mutual benefit conversation.
Right.
Because true networking and true ability to refer comes from building relationships with people. And relationships take time, and relationships need to be mutually beneficial. And so if I'm part of 7 different networks, I'm going to be less effective than if I'm focused on being part of 2 or 3, because I'm going to be able to give more to those people in those 2 or 3 than I'd be able to possibly give to people that are where I'm in 7 or 8 different networks.
Okay. And let's talk about that whole giving thing, because that is sort of central. Again, we keep getting back to the B&I thing, but that is sort of central to the, I guess it's just a reciprocity, really.
It is. And I mean, B&I is a fabulous organization. There are other organizations out there and other networks. In fact, I'll talk to people all the time when they're asking about, okay, can I join this B&I group, or what should I do to increase my my networking skills or my referral generating? And B&I in and of itself isn't for everyone, but what people need to look at is, where can I benefit people the most? I mean, B&I uses the mantra "givers gain." Well, they didn't come up with that idea. It's been around for a couple millennia, but it's a very powerful concept. In other words, if I can help you be successful, then it should come back to me, either directly from you or from somebody else. And so if a B&I group doesn't have the professions in there that are going to be as beneficial to me or me to them, then I need to find an organization that does allow that to happen. It's just that most of the time people don't have a guidance or a direction, and that's what some of these more professional associations can provide for them. Chambers fall in the same boat. Mm-hmm. Professional associations of certain professions, I mean, they all have that piece to them. It's just a matter of having that tool in place and then knowing how to use that tool effectively.
When it comes to professional associations, sometimes it's hard because they're all in your same business.
Correct. Yeah. There are different types of relationships, and one of the things that comes out of it is that you've got a referral network, you've got an informational network, and then you've got a relational network. So they all have certain purposes, and you may have individuals that are in all 3 of them, so those are pretty powerful relationships, and yet you've got to figure out where to spend your time to make it be as effective as possible. Since we're talking to predominantly business people out there, right, then it's really a matter of going, what am I looking for? So just to kind of take it to, I try to break it down when I talk to my clients about the fact that, okay, if I'm trying to figure out who can help me, I've got to train them. Well, I can't train them unless I know who it is. And the only way that I'm going to know who can help me, in other words, the professions that can help me, is if I know what type of client that I really want. And the only way for me to really know what type of client I really want is, what's my message? So we have to backtrack, and we obviously don't have enough time to go into all of those details. Right. But that's really when people know truly what their message is in business, then they'll really be able to define their target market. And if they know what their target market client is, then they should be able to either know or get help defining the professions that can most likely bring them that. And you and I were talking a little bit earlier about the whole conversation about contact spheres, which is really just a term based on non-competing professions dealing with the same type of client, right, on a regular basis. So, I consider myself fairly knowledgeable in the whole concept of referrals. In fact, I tell people all the time when I'm giving examples, I can find a referral for pretty much anybody in the world, guaranteed. Which is a pretty bold statement, but I could turn around and say the same thing, that you could do the same thing.
We'll talk after.
Yeah, given enough time and resources. But it could be a complete waste of your time and my time if I'm trying to find a referral for you, whereas somebody in your contact sphere that's dealing with the type of clients you want on a regular basis, it's very easy. So develop a relationship with that person because they'll send it to you on a daily or weekly basis, whereas it may take me months to come up with a good referral for you.
Right.
So
if I'm thinking of, for my business, which is, doing video production, I'm thinking that people like web developers and other marketing professionals are probably good contacts for me.
In general, that would be the case. The only thing that I would hint at and suggest is that, video production could still be a pretty broad profession. There's a lot of aspects to video production. So I would suggest that you go one step back and go, okay, who are your true clients? What's your true target market? And then, because every target market does have a contact sphere, it's just that if we use the video production, there may be 60 professions. Well, now your head starts spinning and going, well, how am I going to network at all these events to find all these different, and that's just if there was only one person in each of those professions.
Right.
Imagine running into 7 people in 60 different professions. Now that's then people start getting way overwhelmed. So the value behind figuring out on focusing on a particular target is that actually gives people a better way to network, because then they reduce the number of potential professions that they would need to initiate or engage.
So if I told you I'm looking for companies who are 50 employers or more that create enterprise level software, that is more specific than just 50 or more employees. I might suggest, enterprise software is used across multiple industries. Even tighter than that.
What I experience is that I attempt to get people to go as small as possible, because my question would be is, how many companies are there that fall into the target that you just described?
I see.
And it could be thousands.
Right.
And the question is, do you want to work with thousands of companies, or can you work with thousands of companies? And so until you can get down to a target that has 7 units.
Right.
And you might go, well, I can work with all that, but I need more than that. Okay, then we back it out a little bit more. So I now consider it a fun game. It can be frustrating because I had to play the same game, and it is frustrating for people to try to define it smaller and smaller. But that's the objective, is to get it to where it's not enough business for them, so that then we back it out a level and go, okay, there's 50 companies, and if I could have all of that, that'd be more business than I could possibly handle. So although your description was way better than most of the time when I start off a conversation about that, they go, yeah, any business that has 50 employees.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we haven't narrowed it down to a country, an area, so there could be hundreds of thousands of those companies.
Right.
And
I think when we first met, my target was I do videos for businesses.
Right, which
business.
you're smiling, and now you realize that it sounded good at the time.
Right. I thought, well, I narrowed it down. I don't do weddings.
Great, which was 2 thumbs up for taking one piece out of the equation. We still had hundreds of thousands of businesses out there, which, part of it, and this comes back to the earlier question about networking, what people think. I believe that there's a feeling out there in general that, it's abundance versus scarcity. The most successful networkers that I've come across, or the most successful people that do well referring, are those that have an abundant thinking. In other words, they don't fight as hard. They still fight, but they don't fight as hard on shrinking that target market, because they know there's plenty of business even in that smaller target, as opposed to, well, I need to ask for all of this because I don't know where business is going to come from.
Right.
And that's kind of a philosophical component. And I also have to let people know is, it's your business. Even if we get you focused down onto just focusing here and the professions that can help you, if you get something out here, you get to decide.
Right.
Do I want to take that? And the funny thing is, most of the time people don't really want to take that, other than the fact that it may help them pay the bill temporarily. So, and yet all the effort and time that they're spending out here, they're losing all these opportunities that are in a much more focused target, which is what happens when they're networking. They get told, you need to go out and network, and so they aren't given much guidance or direction, so they go out to all these events and have less than desirable experiences because they haven't been told that just going out and networking doesn't automatically mean they're going to get business right out of the gate, especially if they go to if I'm looking for, well, if you're like, and you gave a perfect example, if you're looking for businesses with enterprise solutions as opposed to weddings, if I go to an association of event planners and things like that, well, yeah, they're going to love videographers, and can you do that? Sure. Do you want to do that? No. We do a lot of things as human beings, kind of running around, not having a whole lot of direction. And so it's nice to be able to focus our times and energy. And go back to what I was saying earlier, most people don't want to market.
Right.
You want to, if I could show you something to where you would never have to market again, and you could spend all the time that you wanted focusing on what you enjoy doing, which is videography, would you be excited about that?
I might. Part of me likes some of the marketing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I create.
Well, it's nice
marketing
because I
myself,
haven't
so.
yet found anything that out there that doesn't allow us to not market. When I do, I'm hopefully going to be able to share that with people. But it's going to take something. It's just how can we do it more effectively?
Right.
So.
Right. Well, certainly, as you create your marketing materials and you create them professionally, the more people it's getting the people to look at them and consider them. It's getting eyeballs on.
Yeah,
it. You can have the best, video, for instance. The best marketing video, most convincing, compelling thing. But if nobody sees it,
true. And that is, that's the other, not necessarily the other side of the coin. It's not that, because the numbers game mentality that's out there. Mm-hmm. Sure. That's what large corporations typically do all the time. Is they've got the resources and they can throw a lot of stuff on the wall and see what sticks. And if 5% of that sticks, that's successful. Most smaller companies don't have that option. We don't have $500,000 marketing budgets or $1 million marketing budgets.
Right.
We don't have dozens of people that can just go out and just see what you can do and see what you can bring in. So we actually have to be, we being the small business community, have to be more effective at this process because we don't have those vast resources. The fascinating thing that I've found is that when we are more effective at that, we get what we want to a larger degree than if we had the resources to just throw stuff on the wall, and it's more enjoyable. And that's, which is really what the SOHO or small business community is looking for, is being able to spend more time doing what they enjoy doing. And that's really why I enjoy what I do, because that's pretty much the marketplace that I get. Can this stuff that we're talking about here work for large corporations? Absolutely. They're just not as focused on it because they haven't come across the fact that they have a need to do that. It would be as successful for them as it would be for the rest of the business community. It's just that we get to do it and get to do it more effectively.
One of the things you talk about is developing referral sources. Mm-hmm. So from those we know, so you've met a bunch of people at wherever you've met them,
right?
And then how do you decide who are your referral sources, and how then do you develop them? There's that whole concept of actually grooming them and them grooming you,
right,
to be effective referral partners.
Well, the starting point is you take all those cards and stick it in a big bowl, and you just pull it out, and that's the one that you want. No, sometimes I'm being facetious, of course, but a lot of times people think that. They collect all these business cards, and they go, okay, now where do I go? It goes back to the whole relationship component. And if people have that, this is my message, this is the type of client I wanted, these are the types of professions, then they can start there. There's an article out there called 10 Steps to Networking a Mixer, or networking or attending a networking event. And it's a really effective way to help make networking events be more successful. I could show people in a short amount of time how to, in 1 hour, get 10, 100 times more out of that networking event and be able to leave than if they were there for the full 3 or 4 hours that most networking events are. Mm-hmm. And it's all about focus. It's about why are you there. For example, before you go into an event, have a goal. How many people do you want to meet? And what type of people? And I'm not talking about are they wearing hats or business clothes. It's, for example, you mentioned, okay, let's just keep the example of videographer. So you're looking for web design companies and enterprise marketers.
Right.
So marketing consultants that deal with enterprise companies.
Right.
Okay, so you would go into a networking event, assuming that you did a little homework ahead of time and went, okay, I know that this chamber event or this business expo was going to have a good number of those people there. So you would go in there going, okay, I want to meet 6 people. 3 and 3, 4 and 2, you would decide. And so you would start having conversations with people there. What do you do? How long have you been at it? And generally when you, even, we were talking earlier about introvert versus extrovert, and because there's some people that may be listening to this going, oh, I hate crowds of people or I don't like it. The funny thing is they might describe themselves as being more introverted. My experience has been is that the introvert types of folks, when they're focused and wanting to grow their business, they're actually more effective networkers because they listen better than some of the more extroverted folks, because who are just bouncing around. They connect people, but they're not necessarily listening as well as the introverts. So introverts and extroverts both can be very successful in networking if they have a focus on making it be successful.
You have to overcome that fear of like walking into the little circle and
saying something.
Introducing yourself.
Well, there are tricks behind how to do that too, and you probably have some folks that you've interviewed that are much adept at helping people get past that. And talking in public, whether it's with one person or a lot of people, one person's a little easier. I mean, there's still a reason why public presenting or talking to a group of people is still higher on the list of fears than death.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to get people listening to this going, okay, well, he's saying these things, so I shouldn't be worried about it anymore. Okay, it's just a matter of, do we worry about it or do we look at how can I be more effective so I can do what I want to do, which is my business.
Right.
And so when you're out there, you reach out to those 6 or 7 people, going back to the example we were talking about earlier, and you have a conversation, and one of the best ways that I've found to, and these aren't just magic words in and of themselves, it's just some variation upon that, is, Reese, it was really nice to meet you. You're in video production. I don't know if you're interested, but would you be open to meeting at a different time out of this setting to see how we can support one another? And you're going to basically say yes or no. I mean, if we clicked in some way, because networking events, loud, lots of people, not a lot of time to develop a relationship. So I'm looking at that networking event as an opportunity to highlight a few folks to see whether or not can we sit down over a cup of coffee to see whether or not we're able to support one another. And that's the key thing. How do I help you and how do you help me?
Right.
And
in those folks that you mentioned that I'm trying to meet, these aren't the people I'm trying to sell my services to.
No, great point. Yeah, and that's, once again, going back to people walk in to a networking event because they've been told or somehow heard that I got to go to these networking events to get business.
Right. And
that's I think the discrepancy there. You go to networking events to start the process to turn into business. You asked 100 people that are at a networking event, were they hoping to get business? 90 of them would probably say yes, but all 100 would say they weren't there to get sold. And so if I go in there thinking, I want to talk to you because I want to make you my prospect, my client, it happens.
Right.
But it's not as effective as me going, okay, I'm a enterprise marketer, you're a videographer, let's see if in a half-hour sit-down over coffee, when it's not everything going crazy, we might be able to work together and start that relationship process. And if the worst that comes out of it is we both get a cup of coffee and a half an hour of conversation. The best that comes out of it, it turns into a long-standing relationship that generates hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for one or both of us.
So let's just go into a little bit about what happens at that meeting, because I found that process also kind of interesting.
Oh, you mean after you said, I'd want to meet?
So we get together, we sit down, what are we achieving?
In theory, if the person who's instigating this is probably more knowledgeable on the concept than the other person, although you luck out from time to time and find, we would joke about it in Certified Networker that you found another Certified Networker and they would hear the words that you were throwing at them, and by the way, the Referral Institute's Certified Networker program is nationwide, worldwide, and so your listeners may want to look into that piece, because this is one of the things that you became very effective at, is getting the knowledge of how to make those coffees more effective. I'll just call them coffee because that's the easiest way to go about doing it. But yeah, I would basically in that conversation go, this is what I'm looking for. This is the message that I have. These are the types of clients I'm looking at. And these are the types of professions that I'm looking to do. And so I'm at this point to that fourth stage, attempting to see whether or not you are one of those professions and that I can educate you on how to do that. I mean, one of the things that works for my business is to have speaking engagements. So you may not be able to bring me any direct clients, but if you can connect me to an organization that brings in outside speakers, then that's a resource
In fact, I can do that.
Well, that's yeah. So that's but the reason I came up with that analogy is sometimes people go, okay, if we're going to have a referral relationship, then I have to give you referral, and the only way it's successful is if you give me a direct referral back, and that's not necessarily the case. It needs to be a relationship, and I'll say this all the time. There are very few equal relationships. The relationships need to be equitable. And I use that term because, I mean, you've got things that you bring to the table. The likelihood of us being equal is not there, but equitable, it has to be. Because if you're not getting something out of a relationship, then, I mean, you may still hang around with it, but it's not going to be successful for you, which means the relationship's not there, and vice versa. So I need to be figuring out, as I'm telling you what I'm interested in, at the same time, I need to be figuring out what you are looking for. Because it may be that I can't give that to you, and that it's a waste of your time for us to keep this going. Or I may not have the resources to be able to help you. Now, if I want to help you, if I think that I can help you, or if I have the resources, or think that I can get the resources, then the relationship continues to build from that. And it's not all going to happen in that 1 half-hour coffee shop chat. But that's the starting point to go, okay, do we then have a next meeting? And then do we have a next meeting? And then do we keep figuring out how we're going to support each other?
Right.
So from that networking event where I found 6 people, I may only find one that even goes to the second or third meeting, or I might find none, which I'm hearing the groans in the virtual audience are going, oh, you have to go back out and do that again? You might have to, which is why prepping ahead of time and not just going to a chamber event to go to a chamber event, or go to a B&I meeting just to go to a B&I meeting, that's not going to help people either. It's what can you do ahead of time so that you focus your efforts in a better direction, so you don't have to go to as many events as you initially thought you were going to have to go to.
Right. Well, we take it to the point of being equitable. For instance, I'm thinking of some of my relationships. I had a person who was a choreographer who brought me a lot of dancers and choreography, dance clients who needed videos.
Right.
Which I loved working on that kind of stuff. I don't focus on it as a market because generally they don't have a lot of money.
But as somebody who's been in theater in the past, you're right.
Yeah. But the thing is, so she brought me a lot of business, but there was nothing I could refer really particularly to her. But I could help her out with the video, give her a break on a rate. So
sure,
that's how we sort of tried to keep it equitable in that regard. So.
Well, and I mean, you said that there wasn't anything that you could give directly back to her.
I mean, not in terms of a referral.
Right. Well, and my first question would be, did you truly know what her target market was? And did you truly know what her contact spheres were? And that's not saying that you might have even asked if she's not wasn't able to give that to you, then yeah, we don't really know. I mean, we can guess. Plus, there's a lot of other things. Like you said, you gave her some of your time and some of your product as a way to compensate for what she was giving back to you. And there are plenty of other things that are sitting out there. Who else could you connect her to that might more? And once again, you may be in her contact sphere, but it could have been somebody else in that contact sphere that was seeing the types of people she wanted every day or every week, whereas you might see them once a quarter.
So I might not be able to connect her with a customer, but I might be able to connect her with somebody who could connect her with her customer.
Customers all the time. Yeah, and I'll tell people all the time, if I can bring you a customer, you're happy. If I can bring you somebody that can bring you customers every week, even if I never bring you another customer, you'll typically still remember me, because each time that person that I introduced you to brings you somebody, that connection may have never happened. So yeah, that's the whole equitable versus equal. Because you gave me a client, I didn't give you a client. I brought you somebody that brought you clients.
Right.
So,
and this is where that whole networking thing really, you start to think about it, and it's like, wow, there's a whole lot more there than meets the eye when you initially think about it.
Oh, it's all over the place. Well, I mean, there's a statistic out there that says that each one of us, just on average, knows 250 people. I mean, and some people may be going, I don't know 250 people. But if I put a check for $10,000 on this table right here and said, you have 60 minutes to come up with a list of 250 people that you know by, you probably could do that, as could pretty much most anybody listening to this. Now, just let your audience know that there's not a check for $10,000 here. So I don't have one here. But the point is we do know a lot of people. It's just we're not aware of that.
Right.
And it's the awareness of this. It's not that the referrals aren't out there. It's not that the people that want to help us aren't out there. We just aren't typically aware of it and focused, because we're all running around dealing with everything else in life that we have to deal with. Engaging in this type of activity on a regular basis, even if we don't like networking, doing it makes us more aware of it. Whether it's with a weekly group like BNI, or a monthly group like the Chamber, or some other organization, just doing it on a regular basis gets our subconscious to be more aware of it. And actually, there's a scientific component. You may have, there's a term called the reticular activator, which is a piece of our brain. And it's the piece of our brain that when we have, going back to kids, when we have a kid, now everybody out there is having a kid. Or when we buy a new car, not only do we see all the new cars, they're all the same color.
Right.
They've been there. It's just we weren't aware of it because we were focused in other areas of our life. Same thing with networking, and same thing with referrals, is that reticular activator, as we engage in it, we'll start seeing those opportunities more and more, which makes us more useful to our referral sources or our contact sphere people, because now we're aware of it. And that's the beauty behind it, is that going back to that focused effort, not just doing networking to network, but doing it in a strategic way to help us grow our business and help other people grow their businesses.
We talked a little bit ago, we were starting to get about sitting down with a person. Now, there's this concept, and I heard it, I think, first in BNI, but I think it exists elsewhere, is this concept of power partners.
Okay.
If you go into that concept a little deeper, it's not quite just meeting somebody to
Right.
you.
Yeah. Frequently, the conversation about contact spheres and power teams get overlapped. And in reality, the truth behind it is based on intent. And that is, everybody who's in business, and for people that are listening to this that have heard me train, they know that I really use the term everybody, because it kind of is like that whole great referral is any business. That doesn't work for most people. But everybody has a contact sphere. And those are those non-competing professions that deal with the same type of client on a consistent basis. Power partners or power teams are people that intentionally are making an effort to bring referrals or bring business to one another. So in other words, I may go out to a networking event in the hopes of, I want to have 2, 3, 4, and some people think I want to have 20 referral, to have 20 power partners. Well, you can't. It's just, in fact, this Referral Institute organization that I was talking about, they talk about the fact that you're looking at anywhere from 4 to 8. That's the dream goal, is to have 4 to 8 power partnerships. And people think, well, that's not very much. But when you understand the concept of power partnerships, it's people that we would meet on a very regular basis with an intentional goal to figure out how we can bring business to one another, because we're in the same contact sphere and we deal with the same types of clients, et cetera. So it's a very powerful relationship. But
I always think of the realtors and the mortgage brokers.
Yes, those are two contact sphere professions that are more likely to be able to be power partners than me and the real estate agent.
Right.
But case in point, there was a woman who was an event planner and an IT consultant, and they were true power partners because they aren't typically considered in the same contact sphere, because you got event planning, which is the wedding type stuff,
right.
and you got IT consulting, which is not dealing with people all the time, and they're dealing with more machinery-based stuff. But they had basically both happened to have gone through the certified network and gone through some of the referral institute material. They liked each other, so they made a conscious effort to meet on a regular basis to figure out what she was looking for and what he was looking for, and figure out how to get into conversations on each other's behalf. So you're more likely to be able to create a power partnership from your contact sphere because you're starting it out of the gate in a better way. But power partners are intentionally, like I said, it's intent. I want to help you be successful. You want to help me be successful. And we don't just say it, we go through action steps to make that happen. So, I mean, the reason that it's kind of an important conversation for me to have is groups all the time have those terms thrown out. And I mean, I'll run into B&I chapters that say, yeah, I'm looking to work with my power partners. Okay, well, and they just joined the group a month ago.
Right.
Well, it's virtually impossible for them to have power partners at this stage. There may be a power team there, and those people have spent 6, 12, 18, 24 months or more developing the relationship and intentionally doing that. And I may be a perfect contact sphere profession to fit in with these guys, but I haven't proved myself. I haven't made that commitment. They haven't proved themselves or made that commitment as well. And so we're not there yet. I'm looking to do that. And if they're in my contact sphere, I'm more likely to be able to do that because we'll talk a similar language with the prospects out there. So the goal would be to have power partnerships. It's just go into it knowing that when you talk about power partnerships, just like the word describes, the power is in the intent. I mean, I'm basically taking time out of my life, out of my schedule to help you grow your business. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know there's going to be a reciprocity or reciprocal component to it that'll make it work.
So it's like anything, any kind of relationship in the real world, it takes some time to develop. Not like on Facebook where you're automatically friends.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And we don't have enough time to go into the nth degree of that, of online versus offline.
Right.
And you probably have access to people that are very knowledgeable on the whole online versus offline. I believe, and some of my colleagues in the offline networking arena aren't as what's the word that I'm thinking of, as kind or generous to the online component. That being said, we're still humans. We're still human creatures that, whether we're introverted or extroverted, still want to have the interaction with other people. So the online component is and can be a powerful tool, at least for the immediate future. It's not going to eliminate the need to have the interaction with other people, especially when you talk about referrals and talk about relationships. Yeah. Because if you're looking at long term,
well, and then especially when you talk about these true power partners,
right.
It takes a while to develop that. It's just like you don't find your mate.
Right. I'm not going to look at somebody's LinkedIn account or Facebook account and see all that stuff written there and go, that's the person that's going to be my power partner in this. So it may be a starting point.
You're like, this is a potential power partner, maybe.
But at some point we're going to meet, either Skype or face-to-face or whatever. Right. And my experience has been in true, profitable, successful power partnerships, even the Skype component isn't going to work. I mean, people will fly across the country, across the world to sit down, eyeball to eyeball, face to face. And if there's enough money and enough business involved, they'll make that effort. And they can become it may have started out online, but it's going to culminate and really consummate through the personal interaction.
Right.
So yeah, I think that there's a very powerful component to this whole online tool. The offline component is where relationships are developed. So that have, I guess this is where relationships that have value are developed.
So this kind of brings us back to one thing, the last thing I want to talk about, which is BNI. And my personal relationship with BNI is I was in it a while back, and then I was out of it, and now I'm about to join another chapter and get back into it. So sort of a full disclosure thing on that. I think BNI is a good way to go. But explain to folks who don't know or have heard of it how BNI helps with this whole process, everything that we've talked about.
Okay. Yeah, and I can easily put the disclaimer, even though I'm, like I said, I've been involved in this industry for over 10 years, and a lot of that has been connected to BNI. But I'll say it point blank, BNI is not for everyone. That being said, if people are truly interested in developing their skills and developing referrals, then if BNI is not the fit for them, they really do need to find a network that can help them do that. We're not able to do it, in my experience, on our own. So like I said, at the same time, BNI is a very powerful tool because it's a combination of the associative piece, which is people meeting on a regular basis, and it's weekly, the educational piece. BNI is very, very strong and heavy on giving us the resources and the tools to get better at this. Like I said, the people that come into it, videographers, marketers, real estate, name their profession, don't come into it with a marketing degree, typically. They come into it wanting to do what they want to do. BNI provides tools on how to help them they got it over 28 years, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. Those folks have culminated their knowledge base to create a system that helps people be more effective in that referral marketing.
In fact, when you join, you have to take a class.
Correct.
On how to be effective.
Well, I'm not going to say you have to, because you don't like, because I know that there are a bunch of entrepreneurs that are listening to this and they don't like to have to do anything. So it is part of the process to be part of that. No, but I'll joke and say, yeah, you do. You take a new member class to help you get up to speed. And throughout the membership, you have, in fact, one of the leadership team positions in every chapter is the educational coordinator. And their purpose is to bring a snippet of information on referrals or on networking on a weekly basis. Every week. Or outsource it to somebody in the group. Oftentimes we'll say somebody who's a new member that just went through the new member orientation, education coordinators will frequently have them say, hey, you know what was one thing that you learned? As a refresher to the seasoned members that might have forgotten it or just didn't realize that. So yeah, education is a key element behind it because so you've got the association component of it, you've got the education component, and then you've got the accountability piece. I mean, yes, there are policies within BNI, 19 of them. Okay, BNI has been around for 29 years, so there's not a large amount of policies, but there's basically a structure in place to help us be more accountable to ourselves. And when you're sitting there on a weekly basis in front of people, or if I don't show up on a weekly basis, then that impacts my referability. And so it gives me that structure and that accountability that I may not necessarily do on my own.
Right. So. Well, and it's I think it's something that differentiates BNI from other. I've been part of other referral organizations, and BNI is by far the most structured. It runs like clockwork. Every moment is accounted for, and that's both good and bad. I bristle at it because I'm I consider myself this sort of.
So did I.
Yeah. But it does make the meeting is effective. You're not sitting around waiting for something to happen. And,
right.
It's an hour and a half, and it's boom, 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 and every moment is.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the brilliance behind it because if you think about it, it's fascinating that here's an organization, pretty much. I would say 95% of the folks that are in BNI chapters are entrepreneurial, small business, independent business people that don't like being told what to do. That's the whole reason they got into business. They typically bristle at structure, that kind of format. And yet, subconsciously, we know that we're our own worst enemy. So it creates a structure within reason to help us be more in line and to help us get to where we want to go.
I can deal with it for an hour and a half a week.
Right. Yeah, it's 90 minutes. And think about it. Okay, I can get this to be done in 90 minutes as opposed to spending a whole day trying to go out and do that. Yeah, That's why I think we give into that whole counterintuitive structure piece that most entrepreneurs don't like, is that there's a purpose behind it. And the purpose is to set amount of time, focused amount of agenda. I mean, the agenda, it's, at this stage, it's a 5-page agenda, timed to the minute. And it's there, you get in, you deal with the agenda, you deal with the passing referrals, and get out and get on with your day.
So we'll have a link to BNI on the bottom of the page on the website. And for people who want to get in touch with you, should we put your...
Sure, I'm happy to. And people can reach out if they've got some questions about it.
Okay, so we'll put your link on the bottom of the webpage as well, so people can reach out to Trey if you want to talk to him more about referral marketing. So thanks a lot for being here. It's really been very interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.